Many years ago, I had a conversation with somebody that was really thought provoking for me. I consider this man to this day one of my spiritual mentors. Haven't talked to him in many years, many years, but at the time, he was absolutely pivotal to my growth and my development. And he asked me a question once. He said, if you couldn't talk about your faith or your religion or what you believe in, and you could only demonstrate it through your life, through your actions, and through your results, would people come to you and be interested in knowing what it is that you've got figured out? And that conversation and that question has stayed with me my entire life since I had that conversation. We all feel like, I think so many of us feel like we know so much. And it seems like we're all so excited to share what it is that we know. The old proverbial, we're so good at giving other people advice, but then we're not so good at giving ourselves advice or taking our own advice. Maybe you know what I'm saying? When I look at so many different people who talk about their faith, their spiritual practice, their religion, their perspective on human behavior, psychology, their philosophy in life, whatever it may be, right? Just your general overall, let's say, paradigm and worldview. So many of the people that seem to want to push or promote their paradigm the loudest, I don't find myself attracted to wanting to know all about it based upon their living example of what it is that they preach. Like, I'll focus on Christianity as an example in this video right now because I grew up Christian. I grew up raised in a traditional Western Judeo-Christian household. Very, very religious. And one of the things that would get me into trouble a lot during my teenage years is when I would regularly ask some variation or version of the following question of my parents, people in church, elders, the wise people. I would ask, if God is so good and he's so powerful, the Alpha and the Omega, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Lion of Judah, the great I Am. If this is true, or if we truly have it figured out and Christianity is the right way, or the way, then why doesn't every Christian have such an amazing and incredible life that people are just magnetically drawn to us and are begging us to explain to them and share with them what it is that we have? Because, if we're filled with the power and spirit of the God of the universe, shouldn't we have incredible, amazing lives? It doesn't make any sense to me that we would have to go out and evangelize, recruit, bring people to Jesus. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Now, understand, I do not profess to be a Christian today. However, I am a follower of Christ, a believer in God, and I do my best to be Christ-like and to live from Christ consciousness, not as a religion, as my own personal paradigm of how the universe works. But to my point with that nagging question that started happening, I think when I was around 14 or 15, I always come up with so many nagging questions that frustrates people. But I started asking this question, and to this day, I believe it's a very valid question. If what you have, what you believe, your set of values, disciplines, paradigm, perspective, ranging from philosophy to mindset and psychology to rules about life to principles to religion, faith, whatever. If what you have is so good, then you should have such results in your life that you never have to be the one to try to promote it or preach it. People should be coming to you and doing their level best to pry that information out of you. You get what I'm saying? It's like if you know somebody is absurdly rich and they've built that fortune, let's say self-made, they weren't born into it. And let's say you want to be rich. I would imagine that if you had the opportunity, you would try to connect with that rich person and do your best to try to learn from them, get some kind of guidance, wisdom, insight, mentorship. You would listen too, wouldn't you? Right? Why? Because they have a result that you want and they embody that result. As the Bible says, you will know them by their fruit, their results. To me, most people, modern day Christians and any other group of people, ranging from the philosophical to the psychological to the principles to the faith, most groups of people to me are, like the Bible says, are clanging cymbals. They're empty, hollow vessels. They're just making a whole bunch of noise. As Apostle Paul wrote, they have a form of godliness while denying its actual power. The way I read that, understand that, is so many people in life profess with their mouth to be about it in some way, whatever that it is, but their results ain't there. They don't actually live it congruently. So as a man, I would ask you this. If for the rest of your life, you couldn't initiate actively the sharing, the promoting, the preaching of your paradigm, practices, perspectives, principles, values, faith, religion, unless somebody begged you to share it with them because of the living example that your life is, would anybody ever ask you to share with them what it is that you've got figured out? And if the answer is no, I would argue that maybe you shouldn't be sharing it in the first place, because you probably have a form of godliness, but you deny its power. That's an analogy, it's a metaphor. Like a more tactical variation of the question is something I heard from a really brilliant marketer once by the name of Frank Kern, an early marketing mentor of mine and somebody whose content I still consume to this day. Really good marketer, marketing guru, if you will. But one of the questions that he posed is, if your business, two questions actually, if your business could only grow by referral, only, and you could only start with the clients you have or with one client, that's it, and you weren't allowed to advertise, you weren't allowed to do anything else, only by referral, would your business grow? And if the question is no, then you better start changing up your business to the point where you could grow the business by referral only, starting with one client. And if you can't, then you're not doing it right. The other question that Frank asked is, if you could only get paid on delivering results for your clients, so commission results only, would you make money? And if the answer is no, then you need to change up your product, your service, your program, how you do things. Now, that's not to say that you can't charge up front for it, but it's to ask if you had to rely on commission only, on a commission only framework, meaning you've really got the goods here. You're confident that even if you couldn't get paid up front, you'd still get the result for your clients and get commission. If you don't have that level of confidence in what it is that you're selling, you shouldn't be selling it in the form that it's in now. You need to build it out to where it could deliver results on commission only and make you money. Then sell that. If your process with clients isn't one where you could grow by referral only, you need to change up your fulfillment process. So using those, now bouncing back from those two tactical examples, if people aren't coming to you to ask you what it is that you've got figured out about life, because of the living example that your life demonstrates, then it's quite possible, my friend, that you don't have shit figured out. Or it's all head knowledge, but you're not congruent with it in terms of practice and reality. And so what I would challenge you with is, regardless of what your perspective, paradigm, or faith is, it could be anything. You could be Christian, Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, right? It could be about positive psychology like Maslow. You could be like Nietzsche, a little bit more on the unhappy side. Whatever your philosophy is, whatever your paradigm is, I would challenge you to become, as the Bible says, the living word. You live the word that you say is true and believe in such a way that people come to you and ask you, what is it that you have figured out? I want to know. You've got something. And if people aren't, then again, you're not probably congruent with it, or what you have isn't it. So I challenge you to think about and ask yourself how you can start living life in such a way that you can't promote or preach or push your philosophy, your paradigm, or your principles, or your knowledge proactively with your words, only in response to people asking you to explain it, because your life is so good, the results are so good that people want to know. And trust me, if your life demonstrates winning, all people will ask you, hey, how do you win all the time? What have you got figured out? Come on, tell me. What's the secret? They will.